My name is Mike Honda, and currently I'm the congressional member representing District 15 in Silicon Valley. I became interested in serving in the Board of Supervisors after a lot of thought as a school teacher and as a school administrator when I was a vice principal of a middle school, Sylvandale. I wanted to make sure that we were bringing all the services together for our youngsters and for our parents and ultimately for our schools. And because times were tough, and I wanted to make sure that all the tax dollars that we have in the valley will be efficiently used and geared towards our young people in schools. For someone who didn't know me in the beginning, while I was serving on the Board of Supervisors, I guess a couple of things I would want people to know about me is that I took a lot of time thinking about things and making decisions on issues and policy development. And sometimes that lag and that time taken to study things and everything else like that, some of the folks interpreted that as being flip-flopping. I don't know how you can flip-flop when you haven't made a decision right away. My father used to tell me that, look at things, think about it, spend a lot of time in the front, and then make a decision. So your defense of your decision is a short time, because other people will make quick decisions in politics and then spend a lot of time defending it. And I thought that that was pretty good advice. So I guess I want people to understand that I try to be thoughtful about things. I guess the second is that I see myself as constantly being a teacher. And my father also taught me that a teacher ceases to be a teacher when they cease to learn from their students. And so I try to understand and learn from different people in different parts of our community, because the first district of the Supervisor district is very vast. It's probably 70% of the landmass of the county. And it entails everybody from the hills to the flatlands, from ranches to inner cities, what I call the CEOs to the flatlanders. And it was very diverse, and I wanted to understand that district in such a way that I would be able to have that internalized when I go through the county and listen to different issues. And I think that all those things had paid off. So listening, learning, and understanding that everybody can teach you something new. Well, every year brought a challenge to the board while I was there. Everything from budget crisis, where we had to fill a $30 million gap, to having sufficient funds to cover the cost of running the county government, to a point where the state said that you could pass a quarter-cent sales tax, I think it was, to backfill the monies that you need to support law enforcement. I think the ones that took a lot of time and most interested in, and I think that I learned most, were from when I decided to take on the task of chairing the general plan portion of open space in the general plan amendment. And it seemed like no one wanted to do that job because it required working with a very diverse group of folks who tend to be on opposite ends all the time on land use. But it was a challenge, and I thought that that would be a lot of fun. So I asked the board to give me 18 months to work on it, and I'll be back with a general plan amendment for open space. 33 months later, we came back with a plan. But during those 33 months, it didn't seem like 33 months, but we went through almost 2.5 Christmases and vacations. But it was well worth it, because I think that what we learned and how we did it, the process that we came out, and the document that we came out with were substantial, and I think it's something that we could hang our hats on for for a generation or so. And so the open space general plan amendment process was a lot of fun. The other one was looking at how we go about establishing open space authority. There was about 2 or 3 attempts to establish open space authority to match up against the Mid-Peninsula Open Space Authority. And the vision was to have a complete open space, public-private open space area around the valley and on the valley floor. And so and it was during the same time as me running for re-election on the Board of Supervisors, and I thought that I should try to take that task on and provide that the extra push, because there's a lot of folks who are very good in the open space issues, but in the politics of it and the fundraising part and bringing things together, I thought that I could be helpful on it. So we did that, and we were able to pass the Open Space Authority, and that was the easy part. The hard part was just, following through and making those things take root and be well established. I think that those 2 things that we worked on has a long-term impact for future generations in this valley in terms of open space, recreation, and being able to live a quality of life in an urban setting where you have space to recreate and also have your children be able to enjoy what is quickly diminishing in urban centers, and that's urban open space and visual open space. One of the things that the Board of Supervisors is primarily responsible for is human services, which is the arena that the city governments don't deal with, because they're basically dealing with city services, and we deal with human services. And so a lot of these services that we deal with are pretty much private, personal, things that you don't put on the front page of the newspapers, where you try to make things work for the benefit of families or communities, providing health services, providing legal services for those who need legal representation where they can't afford it, working in detentions and correction facilities and sheriff's departments, law enforcement, working with the agricultural community where they may find themselves in difficult straits, where the workings of the Board of Supervisors would be a great help. Water, working with water districts, and then providing mass transit systems in the valley that was initiated by Rod Dearden. So all these other things were a myriad of issues that the board had worked on, and moved it to a point where I think we improved a lot of people's quality of life. A good example is when we went into mass transit, the Valley Transportation Authority was established, and along that line, we needed to provide transportation services to the elderly and those who are disabled. And so the paratransit issue was very important, and I need to take front and center position on making sure that these folks are paid attention to, and that they're provided transportation services, whereas in the past there was not a lot of attention paid to them. Folks like Jim Bell and other folks who took great interest in it were one of the first ones that I learned from. And so understanding their needs, we were able to establish the service and let a contract out through the county to establish what we call at that time, escort and outreach and escort system. And it was based upon using technology, GPS and things like that, so they can pick up people and deliver them to where they need to go in the most efficient way. And so the high technology of this valley was able to be melded in with um, services to people. And that was a lot of fun to see happen. That did not work out. Were there projects in the county that did not work out? Well, I think a couple of things we tried. We tried to do what I call it was a management system where people on the line had a say in the final outcome of a certain department's decisions. And we did a whole lot of training of the managers, the senior staffers, including members of the Board of Supervisors, where we all went through this management system concept where we shared responsibility in making decisions. It went off pretty well, and I think that it built a good team and a good morale, but to have something like that continue, you need the leadership from the top. And when those folks leave, things sort of go back to the way they were. So it wasn't institutionalized very well. I thought the issue that we took on in providing equal services and equal rights to county employees under the Domestic Partners Plan was one that was challenging, but at the same time, I think was well worthwhile, and we got that passed. But I'm not sure whether the county had put it in place permanently when we left, because there was a period of time where you had to get information and come back and have it ratified by the board, and by that time I wasn't here, so I'm not sure whether it was ratified or not. One of the things I'm proud of as a board is that we passed a needle exchange program where we believe that needle users, if they're going to be using needles, they might as well have clean ones. And we weren't promoting needle use or drug use, but we're trying to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. And there was I guess there was a state and federal law that prohibited that. Well, we just looked that law into the eye and says, stuff it, and we're going to do what's right for our community and what's right for public health. And the board went on record of supporting a clean needle exchange program for those who needed it. I think our board and the staff and the senior staff in this county at the time was were scholarly, were forward-looking, visionary, and I think that they wanted to provide the best services for the highest quality of life in this valley. So I feel pretty fortunate having been here at the time that all the convergence of other people were there. Well, I think every year there was something that the board had to face at the time, and it's not necessarily standing up against something, but standing up for something. And we would get direction from the county exec's office, but then we're the board, and we're the ones that had to be finally responsible for whatever we did. And so there was the issue around sheriff's office and correctional office. That was a very thorny, historically laden kind of issues that over time has, I think, found its place of mediation and some sort of resolution. And I think once the thorny parts are decided upon, then it takes its own shape and form over time. I think deciding whether we should keep the Valley Transportation Authority in the hands of the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors or turn it over to a coalition of cities. That meant giving up certain amounts of influence and power, but I think that a Valley Transportation Authority should reflect its name and have the different cities take part in its creation, development, and growth. And I think over time we found that to be very helpful because, to pass bonds, you need to have the buy-in of everybody. So there's a great opt-in in the way governance was established in that arena. I think the the movement of the cooperation between labor and management and the board of supervisors is reaching a pretty good level of cooperation. It has ups and downs, but I think that everybody learned from each other, and I think that problem solving together is the most important aspect of local government, where you have bad times in a budget, you sit down and try to work it out together rather than trying to decide, who's going to be the final decision maker. The people are the final decision makers, so you want to give them the best services possible by being the most cooperative and having a problem-solving stance for the benefit of the community. So I think sometimes we forget about that, but at that time I thought that our board was pretty sensitive about things like that. So I learned a lot from that. The choice of being a policymaker, whether it's with the county or the city, I think for the people out there, if they're thinking about public service, and if they're more interested in human service, I think you go towards the county. The county has a great amount of work in human services, education, along with the things that the city does, like roads and other areas that cities has. If you go to the city, then the city has tremendous challenges there, where providing city services in a large, growing metropolitan area. And I think one of the great things that happened between the city and county was having an agreement on urban development, where the county and the cities decided that urban development would happen in counties and in the cities, and other kinds of developments would be appropriate for counties, but not massive developments, because everybody in those days was fighting for the tax dollars and for the construction development dollars, and that's not a good way to create a community. So I think this community had matured at an important point, where sprawl was brought under control, but that idea went from one generation to another generation of policymakers, where those kinds of things continued. And as a result, we have a pretty nice, relatively nice community, where the issues around blight and things like that happen in other metropolitan areas doesn't exist here. Doesn't mean we don't have problems, but I think thoughtful development was, and being cooperative with the cities and trying to provide the best ambiance for the community was paramount in most people's thinking.